Hello, this is Janet Michael. In addition to hosting The Valley Today each weekday at noon on the River 95.3, I also produce podcasts, and I'm excited to introduce you to a new podcast series in partnership with Lord Fairfax Community College. Having provided higher education and career training for the past half-century, LFCC is tightly interwoven into the fabric of the Northern Shenandoah Valley and Piedmont regions. Join me every week for conversations with current and former students to hear their funny and inspiring stories as we learn about their journey to higher education, the role that LFCC has played, where they are now, and where they plan to go. We'll also talk to current and former professors about their experiences and best memories of LFCC over the past 50 years. Get every single episode as they're released on our website at theriver953.com under the podcast tab, or you can subscribe for free in Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, on Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search for LFCC Stories. Hello and welcome to The Valley Today. I am your host, Janet Michael. Happy Wednesday. As you are listening to the show today, that means it is The Valley Business Today, and we are pre-recording our conversation, of course, on the Zoom screen. I've got a return guest. You will probably recognize him. He was on just a few short weeks ago, but it's a really cool topic, so I wanted to make sure that I had some time to give the Zoom screen to Dr. Dave Miles all to himself. He is with Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation, and thank you for agreeing to do a show a couple of weeks ago and then turn around and come back and take the whole show over this week. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. Like we were talking beforehand, like I said, I love podcasting, love radio, love the format in general. So it's a real arm twister to, to want to be on, do radio, because like I said, I'm such a fan of the platform itself. So no, thank you for inviting me.
So tell me about Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation. Before we get into the weeds on leadership, what is it that you do? Give me kind of an overview of your business.
One of the big things, I try to work with management at all levels to try to help them, improve their leadership capabilities and really build amazing teams. And one of my big loves is working with teams, especially when you're looking at boards and senior leadership teams. That's one of my favorite things to deal with. And I love, especially when you can work with a small association or a nonprofit or something, to really kind of, get them communicating on the same level, being able to see eye to eye, really appreciate the differences in their team, not just tolerate them. And I kind of laugh. I've been working on a conceptual model for a while. And, like we talked beforehand, a lot of stuff we've been working on, and we'll finish up at some point, someday. But I always kind of thought everything that we do, it wraps around leadership, communication, or engagement. And so, like, for example, we use a lot of assessment tools. And so I'll talk about the engagement part in a second. But I mean, my PhD is in leadership. I got leadership in the company name. So you're thinking, oh, it's all about leadership. But when we go into a company and I'm working with a team, I don't worry about the leadership. And you're like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. I always start with communication.
Because you've got to have that foundation. Yes. And that was one of the questions that I was going to ask you, because I hear so many people say, well, you can't teach people to be a leader. You're either born with it or you're not. And that is so not the case.
No.
If you have that foundation, you can transform anybody into an effective leader.
Right. And the thing is, that's why we always like to look at communication, because if you're in an organization, I know a lot of people can relate to this, especially in larger organizations where you've got sales doesn't talk to marketing, and sales and marketing don't talk to operations, and everybody hates HR. And I'm saying that as the president of the local Winchester Sheriff. I mean, it's kind of like, you're the bad guy. I'm like, well, no, we're trying to help. I swear to God. So, but I mean, you've got all these silos where nobody's talking, and that senior leadership team, the people at the bottom and the people in the middle, they see that. And they see if they're not getting along and they're not communicating properly and they're not on the same sheet of music, how would you expect us at the bottom to do that? I mean, you're expecting something from us that you're not doing for them. So if you can really wrap your head around the communication part, and that's why I like this one first, because it's very, when you deep dive into some really data-rich assessments, so they learn about themselves, the how of what they do, their primary communication style, that type of thing. Also, what drives them, what the why behind what they do. I mean, that's unbelievable to, okay, well, I can kind of watch people and see the how they do what they do, but to really understand what drives them and motivates them and the why behind it. When you're talking about motivating people and putting people in the right jobs, it is phenomenal how you could find somebody where you take them and just the environment you put them in, even if they're the right person for the job, you could put them in the wrong environment and they flounder, or you could put them in the right environment and they shine. Just little things like that.
And sometimes you have to pay attention to their motivation. And I know you and I have joked in the past, one of my regular guests before he left me to go be the dean of a college in Oregon was Miles Davis.
The president of the college.
Oh, the president. That's right. He
I was going to say, don't demote him yet. I mean, he's been doing a good job at Linfield. So yes.
Miles and I used to have a conversation about understanding your employees and your team members' motivation, because not everybody works for that comma in their paycheck. People have different reasons that they want to do a good job and will go above and beyond. And that's part of that communication. You got to talk to them and understand how they think to know what that is.
Right. And that's why I like doing these, because you not only find that out about yourself, and then, I think one of the last parts of the assessment suite we use is a soft skill. It's a strength-based inventory of your soft skill competencies. There's like 25 soft skill competencies. What are you best at? So when you're sitting there and learn about the concepts, but in a team, you realize, hey, I'm looking at all this data on the screen about my team. And I'm like, wow, no wonder Bill and Sue are at each other's throats. Or wow, okay, now I realize that, Joe doesn't mean to come across like a jerk, but that's just kind of, he's just that quick, like, fast paced, 3 bullet point, tell me what you're going to tell me what you're going out the door. And you just did that. You just came and vomited those 3 bullet points on somebody who's you got to like, hey, how was the kid's soccer game? How things going? You got to prep the field a little bit. Well, those two don't jive, Janet. They don't. And so if you don't realize that, okay, people are different, and I've got to take a little bit different approach and kind of platinum roll this thing, man. I mean, I'm just going to talk to everybody how I want to be talked to. Well, maybe that's not how they are. Maybe talk to them how they want to be communicated with, or at least, you know what? I got a concept, God forbid. How about meet them halfway, right? They meet you halfway, you meet them halfway, you can understand them. And so that's why I like to start with that. We did one before the plague rolled into town, actually in person. Oh my God, don't tell
what? I don't even remember the before times.
There's people we can talk to. Oh my God, in the same room. But they did a 2-day strategic retreat. It was, for a association. They were like a statewide association. The board came together. Day 1 was the workshop. Day 2 was their strategic planning. They come back later and they were like, yeah, there's no way we could have got through the strategic planning like we did if we hadn't had that, communication part really, really learn about our team. So that's a big one of what I do. Because I mean, even with the engagement, I mean, I do a lot of pre-hire work with those assessments to really be able to try to match up. Okay, what does a job really need? The behavioral traits it needs, the things that drive them, the motivators that it really needs for this job, and the soft skills it needs. And, really, what are those things, and the people that work there actually help create this benchmark. And then basically we can match folks up based on those kind of things. It's like you're looking underneath the hood and you can tell, what are they coming in with? What drives them? How do they behave? I mean, people are going to tell you what they're going to tell you in an interview. You know that. I mean,
you can have the best. And we've had that happen at the radio station. I mean, we had a person that was hired shortly after I came on board. He's long since been gone, but he was the perfect interview. Said everything you wanted to hear, talked about how, committed he was going to be and the hours he was going to love what he was doing. So it didn't matter how many hours he was working. And on the surface, the other person that was in the interview room with me was like, yeah, this person's going to be great. And I'm sitting there going, I don't know. There's something just a little off there. And, not that I want to pat myself on the back and say I was right, but he's gone. He's not there anymore.
Well, but that was expensive, and that's turnover, and that's stuff that you could have done without. And that's what I like about this. You have the assessment tool, you kind of look under the hood, you can see what's happening. And what I like is like you sit there in the interview and they're telling you all these wonderful things about him. You're like, I know that's not true because I'm literally looking at an assessment that's got 30 years of hard science and data behind it and saying, you're full of it, right? You're lying to me. If you're going to lie to me on this interview and I got proof, right? Then why am I going to hire you? You're telling me you're this and that. And I'm like, I can see right here, you're not. So just stop. But no, I laugh because you put those leadership, communication, engagement together, almost like a Venn diagram. They all have to kind of be together to have a good, strong organizational culture. And I laugh when I was putting this together. I'm thinking, well, if you got, leadership and communication, but you don't have engagement, what do you have? Well, you got a chain gang, right? You got strong leadership. They're able to communicate, but nobody's engaged. It's a really bad workplace. Feels like a chain gang. If you got communication and engagement, oh man, I love to be here. This is a great place to work. We're communicating really well, but no strong leadership. You just got one big giant water cooler. I mean, everybody's having a great time talking. Nothing's getting done, right? Nothing's getting done. If you got leadership and engagement and people are doing their jobs and getting things done and strong leadership, but there's no communication, you have nothing but a great big Nebraska-sized silo farm.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it is, because nobody knows what everybody else is doing. And usually what happens, especially whether it's a small office or a large office, is everybody in their own silo thinks the other silo isn't doing anything.
Correct.
So then they get annoyed, and then all of that starts to fall down.
Yep. And that starts wearing down on your employee engagement and your satisfaction of working there, and ultimately your productivity. And I mean, there's a lot of hard data looking into levels of employee engagement and productivity, and you're going to give a little bit more when you have good leadership, and you're going to give a little bit more when you want to come to work and, people are being authentic and real and communicating with you. God forbid. I know it's such a foreign concept, but
yeah, I'm pretty sure you're talking about a non-existent place.
Probably, yes. I don't know anybody. I can neither confirm nor deny the presence of nuclear weapons on this submarine, sir or man.
Well, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I have one question for you. We're talking about assessments. I want to ask you, and I'm going to group them into this completely generic term of personality tests. But I have a question for you about when you're doing those assessments. And then I want to talk a little bit about the series, the Live to Lead series that you do. Can we do that in the next segment?
Absolutely.
Okay, we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation on leadership with Dr. Dave Miles. He is with Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation. We're going to talk about his Live to Lead series that he just wrapped up and how you can learn to be a leader in our next segment. Hang in there.
Got a financial decision to make or a goal to reach, but you don't know where to start? You've come to the right place. Introducing Quick Money Chats with the Northern Shenandoah Valley Financial Education Program. Visit tinyurl.com/quickmoneychat to schedule a virtual chat with a staff member or trained volunteer. We won't tell you what to do, but we will give you the tools you need to choose wisely. And because Virginia Cooperative Extension is part of Virginia Tech and Virginia State, your land-grant universities, you can be sure that our information is credible and trustworthy. And you'll know that we aren't trying to sell you something. Maybe you want to improve your credit score, or reduce your banking overdraft fees, or even figure out if you can afford to buy that car. Sorting through tons of information on the internet can be overwhelming, and sometimes it can be hard to know who to trust. Schedule a Quick Money Chat and get the information you need to take action. Go to tinyurl.com/quickmoneychat and get financial education personalized for you.
Welcome back to the Valley Today. I am your host, Janet Michael. It is the Valley Business Today. As you are listening to the show today, we are on the Zoom screen, however, pre-recording our conversation with Dr. Dave Miles, with Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation. And Dave, in the first segment, we talked a lot about the different pillars of leadership and becoming a good leader. And a lot of it is data driven. You have to understand, communicate, engage with your staff or your team members. So here's my question for you. When you're talking about these assessment tests, I've taken, I think there are two big name ones out there, and I've done both of them. Here's where I personally struggle, because when I'm answering these questions, I struggle between answering them with the truth or answering them with the person I want to be. So do I answer this? Yes, this is how I would answer this, or how I would want to handle this situation. Or do I answer it with, well, I hope this is how I would do it because that's the person I want to be. How do you weed through some of that stuff?
Well, I'll answer the pre-question first. Okay. Obviously you should answer it. How would you answer your checkbook? How it actually is, or how you really want it to be?
Because the checkbook doesn't care what I want it to look like. It is what it is.
Ding, 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 ding. And it's a proper, reliable, and valid scientific assessment tool should be the same thing. It's not, there's no good or bad communication style. There's no good or bad driving force or motivator, or, and you can tell what your skill levels are and different things. But, and then your acumen, your capacity to do, how you view the world, your systems judgment. I mean, a lot of that stuff, it's not good or bad. It's just simply what it is. And in an organization, you really need a good balance of different, communication styles and behavioral styles. And, if you have everybody that is, chatty Cathy, so to speak, and like I said, you got everybody huddled around the water cooler and nobody with a sense of urgency to get anything done, you're probably going to miss a few deadlines. I'm just saying. So, I mean, but then again, if everybody's just, hard charger, we got to get it out, we got to go, without that person saying, hey, why don't we check it and make sure we're not like violating copyrights, we're not going to get sued, or why don't we make sure that, you have to have the blend of people, it's very important to have that.
And so after you get that big project done, maybe getting everybody together to say thank you, to treat them to lunch, to do something to show appreciation, because it can't be 100% work 100% of the time.
Blasphemy, Janet. Absolute blasphemy. What is this? What is this blasphemy you're talking about?
I say this as I have been caught
appreciating your workers. Oh my God.
I have been caught recording radio shows at 8:00 at night on Sunday afternoon. So yeah, I'm not. See, again, I am talking about the person that I am versus the person that I want to be.
No, with any of those assessment tools, and a lot of them, they talk about, well, it's a personality test. Little Robo Man, I'm not a clinical psychologist. There are like the big five and stuff like that talk specifically about personality. But when you're looking at some of the other ones that are more, that are out there, they're not, unless I'm looking at it, if you're going to a clinical psychologist and you're looking at specific stuff for personality, great. But it's really what people have it's a colloquial term that people have used a lot. And that's, it's personality. Yeah, it's how you do what you do, why the behind it, all these different things. So for me, they're like, hey, are you going to give me a personality test? Not unless I go back to school and get a clinical psychology degree. No, I'm staying away from, but I have these other tools they've got, like I said, it's a lot of hard science and data behind them. And
they're really more tailored to a work environment, more so than how am I going to not argue with my husband? What are we having for dinner tonight?
Close. I will admit, though, there are a lot of husbands and wives that have taken these and said, can I get this to my wife? Because they have these comparison reports that I always give out with the team. So a manager direct report can sit there and have a one-on-one, like with ours. Like if you were my boss, how to communicate with Janet, how to communicate with Dave, flip the page. We both have a copy, 10 different things. You pick your top 2 or 3. I pick my top 2 or 3. We're taking notes. Flip the page. How not to communicate with Janet, how not to communicate with Dave, right? You're like, this is actually more important because this is the stuff that triggers people to shut them down and they just disengage.
Right.
So, but now we know that. You pick your top 2 or 3 that's important to you. I pick my top 3. Cool, we've got notes. Value that you bring to the organization, the value that I bring to the organization, all these ways to manage and motivate, all these different things that where it's literally side-by-side comparison. I mean, to me, that's invaluable. But we have had some husbands and wives that have come back and said, can I get a copy of this to send them out? We do the comparison report to really see, because I got a feeling this might be, there is a lot of value in that actually. But yes, it's primarily, to answer your question, yes. Long story, even longer. It's, primarily for work, but it does work in other situations also.
For me, it was one of those light bulb moments when I realized the argument over, what do you want for dinner, which happens probably in every household across the world every day. And Tim would say, well, what do you want for dinner tonight? And I would rattle off, well, I don't want pizza. I don't want, and he would look at me, that's not what I asked you, but this is how I'm answering you. Here are the things I don't want. So don't pick any of those.
Well, and it's funny, you take that exact, and that is a perfect segue into the work environment. Because think about it, I'm a firm believer, whether it is communication or leadership or whatever, the knots are sometimes more important than the
yeses. Yeah.
The yeses. What do you not want? Well, you know what? I always vision in my head 2 clipboards, right? We used to work at the fire department years ago in the city of Portsmouth, Virginia. And you had this old rickety fire station with these little cup hooks and these little clipboards that we used to check the apparatus off every day. And when I used to think of leadership like with these 2 clipboards, right? Oh, when I get to be in charge, whatever. I look at the good leaders and I'm going to write a list on the one clipboard, like what am I going to do when I get in charge, and then I write on the other one where all the bad leaders, what am I not going to do? And what I wanted to do was, maybe about half a page. What would I not do would look like some of the old dot matrix printer paper at tax time. It just kept flowing. And I'm like, I ain't the brightest bulb in the marquee here, Miss Janet, but if I just avoid the what not to do list, I'm going to stumble on something right. And it's just the same thing with the communication. If I can hit these points and not really just tick you off and trigger you and cause you to go into a meltdown, I'm probably going to do something right. So the knots are sometimes, I think, just or more important than the how-tos.
Is there a definition of leadership, or does it mean different things to different people?
Well,
I know Webster's, I'm sure probably has a definition, but.
Well, it is funny because when I was in school, a couple of our professors had done a global definition of leadership type of thing. You're trying to put something together from the academic end of it. And I think at the time, this is maybe 2010, 2012, they said, all right, at the time of this publication, there were 278,000 publications that were out there that tried to define leadership. Maybe it's got a little twist, but I really like the simplistic end of it. I love the way John Maxwell talks about it, that basically leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. If that goes whether you're a CEO, chairman of the board, or a single mom with 3 kids. Who are you influencing in your personal life, one-on-one, in a small group? Who are you influencing in your community? And it's just leading, part of that is just leading by example. I don't have to get out there on a stage and talk to all these edicts and policies and you will do this and do that. What are you doing in your own personal life that is showing an example like, wow, I really like what they're doing. And, maybe I ought to do that. That's a degree of influence, and that's leadership.
So tell me about the Live to Lead series. Is that
Sure.
kind of what you do in those series, is give those examples and teach people by example?
Well, I love the series because I tell you what, I always grew up. I was watching John Maxwell and all those guys, and when they had the Chick-fil-A LeaderCast before he sold that off, and now it's just LeaderCast without the Chick-fil-A on there. I missed the chicken sandwich, but that's a story for another day. A chicken sandwich actually got me into this whole leadership thing, but that's another story for another day.
Maybe we'll do that after the show, and we'll put that on the podcast at the end.
Okay, but yes, it's I love it because what I do is we can either do it. We have the choice of either doing, when we purchase the licensing for this, either live stream day of, and I'm thinking one fool and a shovel, right? And you're done. Because I've helped folks do it, seen folks do it. I'm like, I don't trust the technology that much. Or we can do it simulcast. And the way we've always done it here locally the last several years, in conjunction with Blue Ridge Habitat for Humanity and Top of Virginia Regional Chamber, is I like having the national simulcast speakers come in, because you've got these huge names. You've got your Tyler Perry's and your John Maxwell's and your Simon Sinek's and all these awesome guys that are coming at it from this high level. But we've always do it like national simulcast speaker and then an in-person local TED Talk style speaker, 15 minutes of something that's more local and more personalized. And then back to the national speaker, then back to the in-person speaker. And what we're trying to do is give, obviously for a visual aspect, break it up, screen, stage, when we're there at the George Washington. And if you haven't been there to stay, you've got to take a staycation with Miss Susie at the George Washington. It's absolutely amazing. But love how we have the setup there, because it does break it up. But yeah, it gives people these great lessons on leadership from not just our big picture, but on that small picture. And like this past year, we had Ernie Bliss from Berry Global, we had Dr. Montressa Washington from SU, and we had Carrie Dunstan, and they were our 3 local in-person speakers. And we had a panel at the end, because I always like kind of wrapping it up with the panel and trying to get what were people's biggest takeaways. How are they going to put that into use for their personal life going forward, so it doesn't just sit on a shelf? But with the panel, it was as much as, how do we put this in use in our local community? How do we take the lessons that we learned today from the local speakers or from the national speakers, and actually be able to put it to use and and give people actionable items that they can take back with them, and not just put notes, oh my God, that was awesome, and they put the notes on a shelf and you forget about it till next year. That's not the point. What can we go back to our office on Monday morning and put this stuff into use and start improving not just our lives and our leadership skills, but the whole reason we're doing that is to improve the lives of other people that are around us and in our community.
And I would imagine too, just the different perspective of the national level speaker and the local level speaker. People in the audience suddenly realize, wait, this guy that's talking on a national level is still talking about something that applies to me. Having those two alternate like that really does help you tie in what somebody is saying on a higher level that really could apply to you in your everyday life.
Absolutely. I mean, you're like, oh, gee whiz, that was awesome. Well, was that really motivating? Well, it's motivating is great, but action is better. I mean, it's not going to do you any good if you don't put it to use. And so that's the thing is, what can we do to really get it where you could put this to use when you go back to work Monday morning?
I know you just wrapped up one of the series. How often do you do them? Do you do them a couple of times a year, once a year?
Well, we do them annually, and the schedule may be off a little bit this year. Typically, we would do them mid-November at the GW every November. Like I said, obviously this year the SU Business Symposium went from March to November, and then unfortunately was canceled, and so we moved ours to February to try to give a little bit of space. Next year we'll have to see. We're same thing, kind of scheduling around Shenandoah University's schedule. I believe they're going to try to do something in November. So this year we did it in February. We might try to do ours in January. Again, you try to get it closer to that November timeframe. But yeah, we do them annually, and so that's something to kind of be aware of right around that October, November timeframe. Keep your eyes open, and we will be, advertising and promoting that. And we do it to try to support Blue Ridge Habitat as well. I mean, they do some great work in the community, and whatever we can do to kind of help them out, it makes a big difference.
So we've got to wrap up in a second. If somebody listening today has had that light bulb moment and they are either a manager or an employee or someone running their own business and they're the only boss and the only employee, how can they reach out to you? Where is the best first place for them to connect with you and try and make another step forward?
Well, I always say I live on LinkedIn. So, I mean, obviously you can connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook. Either the business page or under Facebook, it's Dr. Dave Leadership, or you can go to LinkedIn and it's Dave Miles or David Miles. So you can either of those two places. You go to my website, which is currently under revision. So I'm not. It's going to be a lot better here very soon. So it's what it is for the time. It's like everything. So it's always a work in progress.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're all taking this pandemic to redo our websites. The radio station's about to undergo a massive overhaul as well. So I feel your pain.
Yes. But you can always go to drdavemiles.com. It's just DRDAVEMILES, drdavemiles.com. And it can always go there as well. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking some time today to have a conversation with me. You can stick around for a minute and tell me the chicken sandwich story.
I'll stick around to the chicken sandwich story and the PIGG leadership definition.
I think it is perfect. So we are going to wrap up our conversation on air today with Dr. Dave Miles from Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation, but we are going to continue the conversation that you will be able to hear if you head over to theriver953.com. Click the podcast tab. There you'll find The Valley Today. I will meet you back here tomorrow. I've got a brand new episode of The Valley Today ready to go for you. It is Lord Fairfax Community College Day. So meet me back here for that just a few minutes after noon. So a chicken sandwich, seriously?
Seriously, a chicken sandwich. And I didn't get to the other leadership definition, but I'll tell you what it is. But yes, a chicken sandwich. Well, the problem is when I first started, I wanted some money, right? So I'm cutting grass and doing a little stuff in the neighborhood. Anything I can do to kind of get a little bit of money, because my dad was certainly not the allowance kind of guy at all. It's kind of like, all right, let's go. All you owe me for room and board for the last, X number, 13, 14 years. All right. And I think you're in a deficit to knock off the allowance thing and bring in some wood, right?
Yeah, I wasn't that bad, but I refused to pay Josh for things that he should just be doing because he lived here.
Right, exactly. So very, very similar, right? His just list was a little bit more expansive, right? Yes, let's just put it this way. I wasn't really thrilled when I was at 12 years old and I watched the oil heat getting taken out of the house and a wood stove get put in, and that was our only source of heat. So I'm like, This is not going to be good. I can see this right now. This is
Yeah, this
just
is
not
not
going to
going to
be
be
good.
good for you.
This is not going to be good. Right? I like the oil. I like this whole thermostat thing is pretty kicking. Right. I gotta, when I leave home, I'm gonna get me one of the thermostats again. I like that thing versus the dampers on the stove. But anyway, no, the chicken sandwich. So I had a friend of mine. I was 15 and a half, and I was able to go down to the city and get a work permit at 15 and a half and go work for the Chick-fil-A down at the mall. Well, I had a friend of mine that was a couple months older. She had already been working there and said, "Oh, it's a great place to work, et cetera, et cetera." Well, there's a problem with that. The problem is when your formative work experience, the first quote unquote formal job you had, W-2 employee, paycheck shows up, whatever, not just cutting granny's grass and she slips you 20, right? And which should have probably been 50, but it's not 3 acres, but you know what I mean. Um, so you get there and you realize the guy that owns the place is fantastic. I mean, he's an owner operator. It's his business. He bought it. He owns it. You know what I mean? So it's but the environment they created, and I mean, it's fast food for goodness sake. Okay, it's messy work. It's not great pay. I mean, you work real hard, especially during Christmas at the mall. I mean, this is long before they had outside the mall Chick-fil-A stores, and so I mean, we just took a beating during Christmas. I mean, just imagine. But it was like a family, and he always had big Christmas party. Appreciate everybody for their hard work and thank you very much. And I mean, just him, his managers and supervisors, everybody. It was just a family atmosphere. It was a great place to work, and you enjoyed going to work. And it wasn't like, oh God, I got to go into that. No, you really enjoyed being there. So the problem is that ruins you because that's to you that's work, especially
that becomes your bar.
That becomes the bar, right? So when you start at 15 and maybe you're there till like 18 or so, and then so for 3 years, that's what you know. And at 18, 3 years is a relatively significant percentage portion of your life, right? So of course that's life because that's such a big percent. This portion of my life has been, has been there. So you go to other jobs, and then you're like, wow, this ain't like where I was at before. And you start explaining it to them, and they're like, they're looking at you. They're like, look, boy, that doesn't exist. You're 18, so you're still a boy, right? You're just like, look, boy, that doesn't exist. You're like, well, yeah, it does. I literally just came from there, right? You're not hearing what I'm saying. It does exist. I go like, no, it doesn't. And I'm like, yeah, it does. And so you get in these kind of this cognitive dissonance that comes about. Like, I know it could be better because I lived it. I was there. I was in a great, engaged, good leadership, good communication work environment that had a great organizational culture. I mean, it's like anywhere. It's not perfect. I mean, no place is perfect. But I mean, you're like, okay, this is what it could be. And then you work all these other places. Like you said, you got your good boss. Hey, this is what I'm going to do when I get there. And then you got your bosses that maybe not quite in the same caliber that end up on that. When I get to that point, here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to be my folks. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. So yeah, that's where the kind of that kind of two clipboard theory came from. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I ain't got a lot on my to-do clipboard. Well, but I got so much on my not to do clipboard. I'm like, I'll just actively avoid those things. And just by dumb luck,
by default of sorts.
By default, I will stumble into the right thing to do by avoiding the wrong thing to do. I mean, so it's as simple as that. But yeah, but so we were talking about, we didn't get to it on the show, but I talked about a PIGG definition of leadership. And I'm going to figure out and expand on this somehow. I mean, book or something like that, but it's a little bit more academic. But yeah, I'm all about the leadership, its influence. And I mean, and really everything really rises and falls on leadership. I mean, it goes back to like Jocko Willnick's book, Extreme Ownership. I mean, it's just so many ties to these great folks that are in there that, I mean, it's something good or something bad. It's due to the leadership. And okay, well, maybe you didn't do it, but what environment do you create that might have caused this? Or maybe you didn't do your due diligence when you were hiring somebody or whatever. But I like that we had to remember all these definitions of leadership for our comprehensive exams. And this one that was a real popular one from one particular scholar, remembered it from PIGG, P-I-G-G. Leadership is a process whereby an individual influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Not quite as simple as, all right, it's influence. I mean, but really close. I mean, it's just, Okay,
Well, I
well,
think the key thing there is process.
yeah,
Because again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that people don't think that there is a process, that you either have it or you don't. And if you don't, oh, well, don't try to learn it. But that's just not true.
well, it's kind of in using an athletic analogy. It's kind of like, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you get out there and you have somebody. There's always people that have a propensity for a certain profession, their temperament is a certain way. So I mean, it kind of feeds the myth of the natural born leader. And there are some people that had those types of talent and capabilities that you're like, okay, that's a good suited thing for them. I mean, that works well for them. But it's not okay. Well, you have to check these certain boxes on this behavioral assessment. You have to be high and to the right. You had to be fast paced and task oriented to be. And if you're not in this one category, then everything else is you're bad. That's like, no. There is no good and bad. You need a blend of all of them. But when you look at it, it is a process, and people can get to be better at it, and it's always a journey. You've never arrived, and that's the daunting thing. Like this paradox of when I went back to school, I'm always just this massive fan of leadership, and same thing right from the chicken sandwich. I mean, I'm like, it could be better. Like, how do I study and be able to take these tools and help people become these better leaders, better organizations? And my concentration is, I didn't like the name of it at the time, but it's human resource development. I just heard human resources and shut down. I'm thinking pay, benefits, compensation. Like, that ain't me, man. That ain't me. And my professor is like 6'4". Is first day of class in the spring, he always wears this big seersucker suit. His big football player guy with the white beard. So he looked like Colonel Sanders, right? He's everything but the bucket, right? I mean, I'm kid you not, everything but the bucket. And
you really do have a thing with chicken, don't you? You really do.
I know chicken has just got. I don't know. Chicken has just got me my whole life. I was like, where does it always come back down to chicken? But so Colonel Sanders set me down. Dr. Colonel Sanders set me down, and we were looking at the concentrations, and I'm like, human resources. I don't. It's like, just shut up, boy, and just sit down and listen. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm good with that. Like, I mean, it's huge. He's like, look, everything you told me you wanted, training, development, consulting, all the things that you want. So that's what this is all about. This is all about making organizations better, making leaders better, making teams better by developing your leaders or teams or people. So can you sign on to making organizations better by helping develop their leaders or teams and their people? I'm like, well, yeah, that's why I came here. Like, then perfect. This is the concentration for you. Let's roll. Like, I'm digging it, boss. Let's go. I'm in. Sign me up. so that's how we ended up, going to that concert, and I love that. I mean, you think about it. You're making organizations better by helping to develop their leaders and their teams and their people.
Yeah, and it does. I mean, and it's got to be really cool too to see how they flourish and succeed after you've worked with them or after you've seen them at a Live to Lead series or any of those things. And it's not really, because I know you're not the pat yourself on the back kind of guy, but it's got to give you that little bit of, hey, I helped with that. I played a role in that. I have done something good for my community, is kind of how you see it.
That is a lot of how I see it, but I will admit there is one thing that just I absolutely love. When you about 3/4 of the day through this kind of the day-long workshop that I do for the boards and senior leadership teams I was telling you about 3/4 of the day, when you start seeing the light bulbs turn on, and it looks like the 4th of July in that room, right? Where all the light bulbs are coming on. Oh my God, I get it. Holy smokes. That's why, that's why this person is at this person's 30. That's why that's why we're not getting anything done, because we look at our behavioral traits as a team, and sense of urgency is the one on the bottom. Like, we don't care. We're just cool to get our checks, and we're not worried about change. Frequent change is really low on the bottom, and urgency is low on the bottom, and all these things that would be important we've got to get things done. And then you look like, wow, so this one guy has this like crazy sense of urgency. Nope. Yeah, well, that's the one guy that's always like herding cats and kind of keeping us in line and good. All right, well, that makes sense. So all these things that they kind of intuitively know, or if they may have taken years and worked around each other, but if they haven't, it's like the Cliff Notes, the cheat sheet, right? I need to work with this guy or this gal for 15 years to figure it out, or I can, go through this and get all this, not just the individual assessments, but our team report, and put all this data together and really see how our whole team operates and how it clicks and what's good and what's bad and stuff like that, and see what strengths and what that we all have, what we're all good at. I love looking at that top 7 soft skill competencies that everybody has, and where's everybody the strongest at? Where do we have the right people in the right seats on the bus? I mean, you got Jill, who's in charge of, is not in charge of any projects, but project management is one of her top skills. Well, maybe you better put Jill in charge of some projects because she's really good at it. I don't know. I could be wrong. But just things like that. I love, and there's a lot of personal satisfaction that comes from seeing those light bulbs come on. They're like, oh my God, I get it. And invariably they look at somebody that they've had some conflict with, and you can see the I'm sorry in their face. And I'm like, okay, that is the start of the road is going to get better. Right.
Yeah, see, I would be the person sitting there going, see, I told you that they didn't.
I'm not saying there's not a little bit of that in there amongst them. What they do amongst themselves is their own deal. I'm not, but no, that is a lot of fun. I will admit that. So
thank you. This has been fun. I'm glad we were able to catch up and do a little radio show. I think this has been a productive morning.
Definitely enjoyed it, and we will actually have to get a cup of coffee at some point soon. Just let me know. Well, I would love to get something on the calendar. And Thanks again for the invite.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Have a good one.